You go through this process of gym rats going through and getting their degrees, getting their certifications. They love being in the gym. And the mindset is, I'm just going to make this my hobby.
We pay literally top 1% in the industry. A facility leader is generally going to make six figures. If they maintain their bonus and they do their revenue, if they do their job for 2 years, we start a 5% revenue share with them too. I want my people doing well. I want them to be like, man, this was freaking awesome. I love working for you guys. I make great money. I have 5 or 6 people working here that literally have all said to me, I make more money than my parents. It's crazy. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining.
Of course. I'm happy. Sorry we played phone tag quite a bit. I know we went back and forth.
Yeah.
The schedules are crazy, man. I'm in the thick of, heavy scale. We're growing too many businesses. Typical entrepreneur.
Yeah, you got your varsity house, and you got you guys are at three locations there, and then you're doing coaching as well.
Yeah, we have 3 locations with a 4th on basically, on the runway, getting gassed up and getting ready for takeoff. That'll be later this year. And then we have our consulting group, which, thankfully, is growing like crazy and is really showing that there's a need for that. And it's something I love to do. I think it's kind of a natural progression. I think the way we do it is kind of unique, where we literally we're really just showcasing what we're doing week to week in our businesses. So I think the unique differentiator between us and a lot of other like consulting groups is that we're actively in it and growing it and doing it. And so like, there's none of that, like, back in the day when I had my gyms, and it's like, or my one gym and now I'm a guru, So, but again, no offense to anybody who's doing it. I think the realm of strength and conditioning needs more business coaching as a generalization. If I took the entire pool of gym owners, I would say if you were to compare them against a pool of like professional business people, their business acumen is going to be at the very bottom scale of that.
Totally agree with that.
And so there's a huge need there.
Well, I think a big part of that is you go through this process of, gym rats going through and getting their degrees, getting their certifications. They love being in the gym. And the mindset is, I'm just going to make this my hobby. I'm just going to open a gym. Mm-hmm. And even if they got an education in it and they're good at their field, right? They can coach, they can train people, they understand how to help people, and they can communicate well. But the business side is lacking. And even if you go to school for business, you're still practically, until you get into the point of actually operating a business and realizing that you got equipment that's a 12-week lead time, and you're already starting to pay your lease and people are trying to sign up. You don't know that you got to run a pre-sale. I mean, all these things come into play. And I totally agree with you. I think there has to be, subject matter around how do you build a business in fitness. And how do you go about it the right way, so that way you're not just operating something that's a hobby and you're able to profit from it?
I think like, well, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know, right? And so like business and the X's and O's of strength and conditioning are completely 2 separate skill sets, right? So like myself, I love playing sports and being an athlete. I'm straight Jersey, so I grew up a Jersey meathead, pumping weights and going to the Jersey Shore. And like, there's a lot of, if you've been or Jersey, there's lots of gyms, and like there was a big barbell culture here in the 80s and 90s. So a lot of the local gyms were like old school barbell clubs, like dudes working out in work boots and ripped jean shorts and stuff like that, right? Then the Guido culture here is like, so everybody was looking good with coiffed hair and earrings, going to clubs and stuff like that. So it was a natural, like as a kid, seeing like my older sisters, like friends and what they were doing. It was like, oh, I want to go to the gym. I want to work out. Right. So I fell in love with the training. I fell in love with the science behind it at a later age, just going to college and so forth. And I put all my eggs into the science basket. I was a molecular biology and like human physiology major. down the rabbit hole of every ology you can think of, you know, and minored in chemistry, did my master's, did all my research in like spinal cord injuries, concussions, and sports related injuries and stuff like that. And then in that process had been training people as like a part-time job, like you said, because I loved it and loved doing it. I was like, oh, this is a great part-time job. I went from making like, I don't know, $7 an hour at the pharmacy where I was like a part-time pharmacy tech to making like $40 to $50 an hour training people. So, you know, I had to do a quarter of the work or a fifth of the work to make
you
money,
boss
right?
people around, tell them what to do, and you make money.
Yeah. So, you know, at 19 years old, I'm making, you know, I'm doing 10 training sessions a week, making, you know, $400 or $500. I thought I was a big shit, you know, like I'm winning here. And then fast forward a few years, I got my master's degree. You know, I'm 20, let's call it 22, 23 years old or whatever it was when I finished in 01. And then I go open up a gym a couple years later. I worked for a few people, and it's like I never took a business class, a marketing class, a finance class, zero in any way, shape, or form that would ever help me run the business.
Head first, not knowing whether you were in the deep end or the shallow end.
And I think like a lot of gym owners, my thought process was, I'm going to be the best goddamn coach in the world. I'm going to be the next Charles Poliquin, Eric Cressy, like those guys. And maybe I could have been, right? Who knows? But in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to train kids. I'm going to be so good that I'm just going to get busy because kids they're going to tell all their friends, they're going to tell their parents. And I would say that that's technically true. So in the phase one of businesses, right? And, you know, there's like 4 stages of business go through. In the startup phase and that growth phase, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to get busy. The number one thing is probably being a good coach, and just that word of mouth gets you busy. So you get from 0 to, let's say, 50 members, 50 clients pretty quickly, right? And I thought I was winning the day. I was like, this is awesome. But then once I got to go from 50 to 100 and then hire an employee and then scale to a larger facility, all of a sudden the complexities of business started to get really real fast. And the marketing and sales and financial acuity that it takes to run a real business with several employees and a larger like output of fixed expenses and such was a different skill set than the skill set that it was just like Joe churning and burning with a notebook and like, yeah, I'm just going to work 7 days a week, and whenever a client wants to train, I'm there, baby. You know, but all of a sudden, you know, you have what we'll call a real business, and I did not have real business skills. I had training skills. And so we just had to go out and figure it out quick.
So I want to talk about that because that's you're in this growth mode right now, right? You're focused on location 4. You want 10 locations probably in the next couple of years. And you're repeating the location model that you have. Mm-hmm. Would you do it any differently? Would you change your model? I mean, I know you're in it right now, so it's like, well, shit, I can't go change my model now because we're already in it.
I wouldn't change the studio model. That's the right model. If I knew then what I know now.
It's always hindsight.
Yeah, I would probably have done things quite a bit differently here. Like, this is a 20,000 square foot monster facility. We built this custom. I love it. It's my baby. It was such an amazingly rewarding process to be able to design the thing from the ground up and all that type of stuff. However, I probably didn't need 20,000 square feet. I probably didn't need 35-foot ceilings. I probably didn't need a 75-yard turf, right?
It sounds so cool when you're putting it together.
It sounds like awesome, right? It's like my own playpen, right? And look, the ancillary benefit that's come full circle is that when we do run big events like our Business of Strength events or our Underground Strength Con here that we did last fall, right? I can fit 150 people in the place, and we could have an awesome event, and we could do training workshops and mentorships and stuff and have a pile of people. And when people walk in, they're like, holy smokes. Right. And then I'm like, oh, this is exactly. Yeah. And they're like, this is exactly what I want. Yeah. And they're like, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm like, no, you do not want to do this, right? So basically, in short, the resources that I have here in this facility, I could go open up 5 more studios and double my profit, right? This facility on a really good year runs about 25% ROI. if we don't hit 40 in the studios, like it's a loser. Like it's like, damn, this ain't doing that great, right? Because there's 2 employees. It's a small facility. We sell one product. The price, like here, the price sheet looks like, a diner menu, right? In the studios, you got 2 options. You got essentials or unlimited.
Right.
Which one would you like to start with? And it's like, so you have a very fixed schedule. There's no complicated athlete trying to fit into the same schedule as the adults. So I think from the majority of people that are going to listen to this or listen to us, you don't have to listen to me in terms of like scale. If you want to go big, I just got off the phone with 2 guys right before I hopped on with you. I was doing a console call with 2 fellas who have a beautiful big gym. They have 2 gyms. They got 150 members and 8,000 square feet. And I said, well, why do you need 8,000 square feet for 150 members? Now they gave me a reasoning, but it still seems like a lot. And again, their whole thing is, well, if we want to get a whole team in there, it's, well, how much the team training make you? Like, well, we only have 2 teams. Like, all right, well, it's not making you shit then. Right. That's the reality of it. So you over spent on fixed costs that you can't get away from ever. Yeah. In the potential of maybe having some teams.
That happened to me in a club. We had, I was negotiating a lease. I think my situation was a little different because I ended up getting the extra space kind of for free. But I still got wrapped into it. And so now I'm paying the cam on it and I'm paying the electric bill on it. I'm paying the utilities on it. And I didn't need all that space. So yeah, I think in a lot of situations, if you don't have to pay for it and you can figure out a way to get out of it and you're in a position where you have 4,000 square feet when that's all you need instead of 8. I was on with Randy.
Well, that's what I'm saying here. We have 400 members here. And I can train 400 members in 5,000 square feet. Right. That's a fact. Right. So now
flip side is, would you have 400 members if you size down? Because sometimes, your customers, like sometimes they come in and they're in awe because of the size of the space and how great it feels. Do you think you'd actually have 400 members or do you think you'd have less?
Yeah, I think we because we'd still have a pretty like consistent look, like the look across the board would be the same. I think like, I probably wouldn't have attracted some of the really high level athletes that we had back in the day. Cause when you came in here, it looked like a collegiate strength and conditioning center kind of, right? So maybe we wouldn't have gotten some of those pros or some of those D1 kids that we had back in the day. Like we used to have like dozens and dozens of like kids from like world-class schools and or pros, right? And so maybe that wouldn't have been the case, but I don't think like 75% of our revenue here comes from adults, right? I don't think like, Sally Jane, 50-year-old mom cares about the enormity of my facility or the fact that we have, Sorinex racks versus Elite FTS or Powerlift racks. Like nobody's ever walked in the door and be like, so I only work out with Watson dumbbells. If they're not Watson, I'm not training here, So like I said, I think the model is as small as you can, I'm opening up a can of worms here, but as small as you need to make a consistent, repeatable income. And what I mean by that and why that's a little different than as small as you need to make money is because another mistake that gym owners make is they get one facility and then that facility is like kind of busting at the seams a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I need a bigger facility. Right. And my thing is like, no, you just raise prices, sift out some people and go open up a second facility. You're almost always going to make more money opening up a second facility than making the one you have larger. Right. Unless there's a convenience issue, you can get another 100 members, right, in the space, and you get a favorable lease rent deal in maybe this. Like, let's say I'm in a building already, like my Oradell shop has multiple storefronts. If the place next to me went out of business and they were like, hey, would you like to take over this space? Maybe in that situation, if they were able to like give me a favorable rent and deal, I would take it, knowing that we're going to go a little bit bigger. But that's not the norm. The norm is you're going to hit a community. If your goal is to have 150 members standard, meaning that that's the consistent role, at 5% or 6% attrition, you're losing 10 people a month. That means every year, even though you're maintaining 150, you're spitting out 120 community members. Mm-hmm. So every year that you're there, you're cycling through another 120, 150 community members. And that doesn't include the people who never sign up, right? So it could be 200 community members that come to the gym, either decide, nope, it's not for me, or they try it and leave, right? So after a 10-year period, you've cycled through several thousand community members, and the demographic saturation is real. So all of a sudden you went bigger, but people aren't responding to the message, and maybe 2 or 3 other gyms have opened up locally. And now you remember, fixed overhead and payroll. Well, fixed overhead you're stuck with. Payroll is your biggest expense. I want the smallest footprint to maximize dollars, and I want the least amount of employees that I have to put in each space, right? And our philosophy has always been, I'd rather have less people making a lot more money, right? I'd rather have 5 people making $100,000 than 10 people making 50. Right? Yeah. Nobody's staying. Nobody can live in New Jersey on $40,000. Right. So you're living in your mom's basement if you're making $40K. So you have to make real money.
So let's talk about that for a second on the scale side. 2 things I want to hit on is the rent cost, right? So when you guys go to negotiate a lease, how are you justifying rent cost on a market, right? Because some markets you might have better demographics. I mean, obviously you're looking for a specific demographic that you can actually target, but some of them, they do have, you get better traffic flow. You've got maybe a little better income in those areas. Maybe housing is a little better. So how do you justify the rent cost? Are you basing it on household income? Are you basing it on the groups next door, and maybe you kind of shopped them a little bit, did some due diligence? How are you justifying to spend that money on that rent? Because that is your fixed cost, like you said.
Right. So I'm basing it on a percentage of what we think the business is going to make. Our prices don't necessarily change much in this local demographic, meaning that in the, let's call it the suburbia of northern New Jersey, which is Bergen County, and southern New York, which is Rockland County, where we sit on those 2 counties, right? In terms of like our prices that we charge, I can't flex the prices marketably more to like meet a increase in fixed cost. The clients don't want to hear that, oh, well, my rent here is double, so I doubled my prices. Like, that's not going to work, right? We're already at the high end of cost. Right. Our average price point.
You treat it like a restaurant. Right. So you go to McDonald's on one side.
Yeah. I mean, if you're selling gourmet burgers and they're $20, just because you moved into a premium new building and the rent's double doesn't mean you get to charge 40, right? Like people at some point, people were like, I'm not paying $40 for a hamburger, right? And the same thing would be training. It's like, we're already at about $400 a month as an average, right? For our semi-private, the small group training. And it's like, all right, well, if it's $800 now, right. Well, I might as well just do private training then, right? So you start to, rate limit yourself if you go too high. So it's a percentage, right? And for us, that ranges from somewhere in the 4,000 to 6,500, I would say would be the high end. Now, can you stretch more if you have a little bit of a larger facility? Size dictates, we call this the capacity income triangle, right? Price, capacity, and payroll determine how much money you're going to make. Right? Mm-hmm. Your price is a price based on a lot of factors in the service and the product that you're offering. And again, in New Jersey, Northern Jersey, for small group training, we're at the upper 90 percentile on price. So again, I can only raise so much there before I outprice myself, and people are just like, I'm just going to go to Orange Theory. I'll do something different, right? Capacity is dictated by the style of training and the size of the facility. So again, if you're a CrossFit, like again, old CrossFit classes were very heavy on the barbell. They had to be bigger facilities because it's hard to get everybody. Hard to get 10, 15 people working out with a barbell in a 1,200 square foot space. If it's mostly adult executive fitness and it's mostly functional training, dumbbells, med balls, bands, things like that, well, now you can fit more people in this space. So our model is roughly, 6 to 8 people to 1 coach per hour. Okay, so as a generalization, depending on the facility and the classes that we have, we're usually running between 6 and 8 people. For athletes, we might flex that a little bit higher just because kids are a little bit easier to train and so forth. And so if I know, and then my schedule, right? So if I have a capacity, size of the facility is this, the layout of the facility is this, I'm going to run this many classes. We're just using round numbers. If I have, let's just say I have 30 classes a week on the schedule total, right? Whatever that is. and I could fit 6 in each class. That's 180 people max capacity. I look to fill that at about 75% usage. So I'll multiply that times 0.75. That gives me 135 members is the goal target for that facility. Okay. If the 135 members is the goal target, I multiply that times my average price, which for us is right around 400. That gives me $54K a month. I multiply that times 13 because we do biweekly billing, right? That gives me a $700,000 shop. Once I know those numbers, I can work backwards from there. Payroll is going to be about 35%. Fixed cost could be somewhere in the 15% range, okay? And so forth. So that could give me about 100K if I divide that by 12, right? Technically, I could pay upwards to 8,700. I'd rather save my money from marketing. I'd rather overspend on marketing than overspend on fixed cost, right? And so once you know those top end numbers, hey, this is what I'm going to charge in a facility. Let's call it, for us, the sweet spot is I want 14 to 1,600 square feet. I want it to look like a cell phone. I want it to be a rectangle with a storefront on the short side, right? So I could fit weights and equipment along the sides. I prefer that. If I have my cake and eat it too. And then I work backwards from there and I get my numbers to give me roundabout numbers.
So what is that?
And then
12.5% of what your projected revenue would be. And you cushion that a bit. So that way, maybe your total, your rent might be around $7,000 if you cushion it.
Yeah. So that's why I'm doing really well on my first 2 facilities because we shopped smart. I found my first facility in Ridgewood. Well, not this one. This one we own. So that skews the cost. If we were going to rent this, it'd probably be $25,000 a month or more.
You guys got to know.
So the long play here is obviously one day when my kids are old, I'll actually own this building and I'll turn it into a Westie storage or a beer garden maybe, right? Make a lot more money on the beer garden.
Yeah, you're right. And run a Soreness event there. Just have a
yeah, for sure. So but like I said, I would try to keep it in that range. 14 to 1,600. I'm gonna keep my overhead. So I'm winning. In my first facility, I'm paying a little over $3,000. In our second facility, we're paying about $4,500. So I'm crushing it on the fixed overhead in those 2 facilities, right? And so I have a real opportunity to win the money game there for a few years until the pay. And obviously, every year the rent goes up a little bit and so forth, right? But what that also allows me to do, and this is something that anybody listening should really think about, is what's the number one goal in a gym? The number one goal is stability. If I'm not going to be the guy in there training, it's not my passion project anymore. It's my profit project, right? This was my passion project, right? The next phase of my life and my business is a profit project. I want to make some damn money.
That's why that's why you're duplicating what you're doing.
Correct. And so knowing that I'm not going to be the one, I don't ever want to get a call at 8:00 on a Wednesday and be like, hey, I'm sick. You're going to have to come in tomorrow and train people all day. So knowing that I'm willing to overpay, I would like to overpay on payroll. I want to pay somebody really well so that they're emotionally and financially tied to that business. We pay literally top 1% in the industry. So if a coach wants, so a facility leader is generally going to make 6 figures. They're going to make right about 100K. Okay. Right. And give or take $15,000 depending on bonus structure and stuff like that. So it could be upwards of 85 in fixed salary with another 15 to 20 in bonus. And then once they do, if they maintain their bonus and they do their revenue, if they do their job for 2 years, we start a 5% revenue share with them too. So they can wind up making about 105 or so in that range. And the number 2 can make upwards of about 65 to 67,000 there. So that's a full-time coach as well, right? Knowing that, and then from the state of the industry, that there are not too many $100,000 jobs just hanging on trees anywhere.
No.
If I got a 25 to 30-year-old facility leader who's crushing it and they're making 80, 90K, where are they going to make that kind of money? Mm-hmm. So it's really incentivizes them to do the job, stay the course, be a good team member, all those things. And I like it that way because I want my people doing well. I want them to be like, man, this was the freaking awesome. I love working for you guys. I make great money. I make more. I mean, I have 5 or 6 people working here that literally have all said to me, I make more money than my parents. It's crazy. Like I never thought I was going to, like my mom hated on me this whole time. Like I told her I want to be a strength coach or want to be a personal trainer. She was like, you don't make that shit even like a real job. And she's like, now I make more money than they do. Yeah. And I was like, well, there you go. Now, and a lot of my people are young. So it's like, I have someone right now who's making $100K who's still living home with their family. Like,
I hope they're
talk about
that or, by the way, man.
Talk about crushing it. They should be crushing. Now, I mean, look, if I told a 25-year-old Joe, I was probably outspending it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what did you do in your time? Right?
Yeah. So I think like in those regards, I think most gym owners overbloat the size of the facility they need because they really don't have the capacity model down, right? And they certainly overbloat it on equipment, right? Equipment cost is another one. Like, I see some gyms and, it's no offense to any equipment makers, but some of them are obviously more expensive than others. And I was jokingly poking fun of like, no, not cheap at all. A world-class company, world-class people, world-class gear, but it's definitely like, it's the Mercedes-Benz of training equipment. So you have to really either want to make that part of your marketing and part of the process. Like we have the best equipment, which I think is just mechanism marketing. I don't think that marketing works really well because it doesn't solve a problem. The type of rack that I had doesn't solve any woman or man's problem on fitness.
No, not unless they look at it and magically their fat just melts away.
If my goal is to train high-level athletes, maybe that's an attraction piece, right? Yeah, again, I poke fun at Watson. You can spend $15,000 on a dumbbell set, or you can spend $1,500, right? And get some rubber hex dumbbells, and again, I think those are some things that we've learned the hard way. We've overspent on equipment. We get excited about, a lot of different things. We used to have like all the West Side equipment and stuff like that. And I love those guys. They're my friends, right? But it's like, all right, do I need a $3,000 reverse hyper in every facility? Probably not, right? So little things like that, I think, add up over a long period of time for sure.
So where are you, when you go out to open, right? You got at this other location. How far out are you guys before you guys open? What's the timeline?
Generally, we're looking for 6-month rent abatement. So, like, I'm going to be pulling the trigger on
before you say you're working on your 4th location. Like, you're looking for it, or you're actually in the process of signing the lease.
Nope. No, I have several spots earmarked. Okay. I'm finalizing. We're arguing leases and things like that. Right. You let the lawyers battle things out, and then once we have that set, what I'm usually trying to be is, I love 6 months. That's my preferred runway.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so like if I'm September, it's March. I know like right around now, I got to kind of know what's going on. Right. So in the next like 1 to 2 months, I will 100% have that space and process solidified. From there, I already have now. We're ahead of the game on the facility leader. We already know who the next facility leader is, and we have him on our team. So I don't have to go out and hire and develop, which is another reason why I can probably push. I could probably push picking a facility till July if I wanted to, right? Because I have the person. If you don't have the person, you gotta get the facility and make sure you have the person on the team. And then you got to start your on-the-job training and process to get them going, right? We have the person ready, so I'm going to be able to pick the facility, get them going. As a generality, I'm going to do at least an 8-week
pre-sale
marketing pre-sale with a 4-week to 8-week marketing post-sale, which will be what we'll call, we could just group it into a box and call it founding memberships, are going to be between 8 weeks pre, 4 to 8 weeks post, depending on how well it's selling and how many people we sold be day one. So like the last facility opened up April 15. We opened up founding memberships on Valentine's Day, February 14. So exactly 2 months. We continued founding members for a month after the opening of the gym. And then we decided to switch the marketing focus because we were starting to lose steam and cost per lead was going way up. Stuff like that was going up. So we switched it over. But we opened the doors with 90 members. So like right from day one, we've been profitable since day one. And we funded that one ourselves too. We funded most of these ourselves, so we haven't, whether that's good or bad. I know a lot of people like playing with other people's money. We use our own cash capital as a bank. So when we open up a facility, we take a loan from ourselves to pay back ourselves. And we've circumvented the bank at this point because I don't feel like paying 8%, 10%. Right now, a line of credit's like 10, 11%, and a bank loan is going to be like 7 to 8%. Right. So it's like, all right, why pay? I'll pay the interest back to myself.
What do you put into marketing? So, I mean, it sounds like you guys, when you guys do these pre-sales, you're putting in a set amount, right? You have a plan now for this. Like, what is that? What amount
roughly
you're dedicating an hour?
Roughly $30K.
Okay.
For the marketing launch, which is, again, why I said, like, you can always add equipment.
Oh, yeah.
You can always add classes. You can always add staff. But if you start with like the greatest equipment layout known to man and 3 coaches standing there with their thumbs up their keisters, like waiting for work, you're hemorrhaging money. Mm-hmm. And again, because I know that our facility leader is going to be involved in the pre-sales, right, in the pre-sale launch and doing the sales calls and stuff like that. So I'm going to start their facility leader salary probably, let's call it 10 weeks out. So I'm losing money until we get a certain amount of members, right? So again, I'd rather not order all the equipment on my equipment list and be like, all right, hey, phase 1 equipment is going to be the bare essentials that I need to start training people. And then phase 2, it's like, all right, well, maybe, I wanted to get those 2 ski ergs. I wanted to get 2 more echo bikes. I want to get 4 echo bikes. All right, well, let's start with 2. And then we'll get the next 2 once we get to 50 members, right? And it's like, as long as you have like a plan in place, but roughly $30K, and that includes everything. That's not signage. That's fixed cost. We consider that a facility cost because the signage could be very expensive in New Jersey. It could be thousands of dollars, right? Depending on what you do with the sign. But that's digital ad spend primarily, somewhere in the range of. Are
you guys doing all Meta? Or are you guys doing,
I mean, it's Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, all Meta primarily.
Right.
We do, I'll put a little bit towards that. We'll get our SEO, Google My Business. Okay. And we'll probably put somewhere, again, if I'm spending 7,000 or so on Meta ads for the month, I'm probably spending 1,000 on Google ads and SEO, right?
Yeah, just to get that recognition there.
Yeah. And then we do something like, obviously, like grassroots marketing. We call it the campaign trail. It's like, go meet every business owner and prominent person in town. I have a rule, like if the mayor, the police, the chief of police, and the chief of the fire department don't know who you are, you didn't do your job. You didn't market. You forgot about the people who actually matter in the community, right? Because the police chief knows everybody, the fire chief knows everybody, and the mayor's the mayor, right? So if they don't know who you are, and all you did was put money in marketing, when your business isn't going well or something's happening or you ask a favor, they're like, who the hell's this guy? Right. So we make a point to make sure that we meet the prominent figures in town, speak to all of them, let them know we're a big community-based business. So it's like first thing we do is come into town and we donate a bunch of money to the youth programs, and we basically buy some love, right? But donate to the youth programs, donate to the fire department. Usually, like most of the towns that we go in are volunteer fire departments. So it's like, hey, how can we help? You guys need funding and stuff like that. So you come in, you come with it doesn't have to be a lot of money. You come with a $500 check. It's good faith. Hey, we want to make sure one of our core mantras here at Varsity House is that we're a community beacon for health and fitness, and that starts with our kids. Let me donate some money to the youth sports program here. And if you'd like to bring somebody in as like a guest expert one day to do like a nutrition talk for the parents or something like that, please let me know. I'm happy to help.
I like that. That's a good angle.
For sure.
Are you guys looking to franchise?
I don't know. So we've talked about it. I actually have somebody who has franchised in our consulting group, and I have a longtime member here who has sold multiple companies and franchised several. And we've spoken to a few people that he's recommended to us in that realm. It all sounds really good, but the general gist of it is, before you franchise, why don't you open? I want you to, like, you should open 10 or so on your own, get the systems down, put a whole bunch of money in your bank. Because once you come in for franchise and you kind of open it up to VC money, you technically sell your soul a little bit, right? And you do have to give up some of your autonomy once you bring in a big money partner to help you send this thing to the moon, right? And There was a great meme that I sent Dan because like we had met with a guy. We had a VC company come in and like offer us a bunch of money, right? And it was like a good amount of money. And Dan and I were like, shit, that's a good amount of money. Like that's better than we thought it was, right? And but the second they don't get their dividend check or whatever, they're going to be in here telling us what to do. It's like, oh, you guys should be running birthday parties for little kids on Sundays. And it's like, all right, well, it's like, I don't want to do that. So unless Dan's going to dress up in a freaking Barney suit and come in here on a Sunday, it's like, that's a hard no. So
That's good stuff, man.
but I think the plan is I earmarked 20 facilities. I know where I want to be with all 20. We're in our first block of 5. We're going to finish that up. We'll reconvene and assess. We'll do the next block of 5. We'll reconvene and assess. Obviously, Dan and I have the consulting business, which is very attractive because of the profitability there is double what the gyms are. So
I love what you're doing, man. I really got a lot of respect and appreciation for how you're growing and, how you're helping other gym owners grow their businesses. And the fact that you're coming on here and just kind of giving away some of your knowledge that you've gained over the years and how you're replicating that process. That's gold, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Appreciate you jumping on. Everyone, you can find Joe Riggio at Varsity House on Instagram and online. And then you can also find him through his business coaching platform. And Joe, you got a website for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So best place to get in contact with me if you want more Jersey in your life and a bunch of F-bombs. My Instagram is probably the best place. That's just Coach Joe Strong, all one word, Coach Joe Strong. And then the business consulting is just businessofstrength.com. We have some great workshops coming up. We do primarily we do workshops, live in-person workshops. They're usually 2-day workshops where you get a whole bunch of information, knowledge, and networking and fun. Like we usually theme them out a little bit so that like each one has like a little bit more of a specific focus. We have one coming up in May called Weight Room Wealth, where we're bringing in like, our CFO, financial advisors and stuff like that to really talk about how to manage the money of the business and the economics of the business, budget sheets, payroll schedules, stuff like that. And then I'm doing marketing, and specifically for this one, I'm focused on how to write great copy that sells and giving everybody what I like to call my content creation cheat sheet. So how to write great copy and how to create content consistently and make it a little easier for yourself. So stuff like that. We have a couple. We do one in September. We do our Underground Strength Con, which is a partnership event that we do with Zach Evanesh, and that's more along the lines of like kind of split down the middle, like half training stuff, half business stuff. And then we have our private consulting group, which we call the Strongest Year Project. And that's basically boutique, fully customized. Like whatever your gym is, we do a full onboarding with your gym, and we do a deep dive into all the different aspects of your business and help build out custom systems for you. And then we've been doing that now since 2015. We started the 2-day workshops. And then in 2017, we started the consulting business.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Everyone, as you know where to find me. You know where to find Joe. Joe, appreciate your time today.
Michael, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Great information. And, everyone that's listening, please share this information with someone that that you feel like they could get a lot of value out of this. And if not, use it yourself. And see you guys on the flip side.